It's 10 o'clock.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when and where you are seeing this. Hi, I'm Casey Durango of Go Keto with Casey, where I talk about how I lost 97.4 pounds after starting the ketogenic protocol, how you may be able to lose weight, improve your health, and regain control of your life like I did. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. Um, for those of you who have not been here before, I will give a quick primer into how I learned and how I have followed the ketogenic protocol for now over 10 and a half years. And then I will turn just to you guys, to comments. We have a general theme for today, but if we veer off into something else, that's fine. I look at this as a support group chat. All righty. So the main topic for today is when you feel like quitting. Take a moment to remember ... But first, how I learned and have practiced the ketogenic protocol. Keep your carbohydrate intake to 20 grams or fewer a day. That's total carbs, not net carbs. Net carbs just means more carbs. If it's not on page 4, link below, don't eat it, but you don't even need a food list. Talk about that later. Don't eat if you're not hungry. 100% the most challenging part for most people. 100% the most challenging part for me. Second most challenging part, stop eating when you've had enough. Third most challenging part, and I've added this, be patient and persevere. All right, that's it. You'll notice no mention of grams of fat or grams of protein or percentages of anything or time of day eating or food combinations or grass-fed or whatever. Do what works for you. This has worked for me, and I've heard from too many people for whom it has worked to not know that it works for a lot of people. Okay. One of the first of all, let me see. Say hello to people. Cynthia says, good morning, Casey. Good morning, keto friends. And Karen out of Utah, good morning. And Cynthia, can't see and hear you. Thank you. You know the questions that are coming. Lily Gordon, morning, Casey. And Linda Bridges, good morning from Texas. Okay, we're in, the last quarter of the year. Many people at the beginning, in the first quarter of a year, of a calendar year, will embark on a fitness or health regime. They are going to do it this year will be the year. So they start in January gung-ho, and they might have some success. And then there are a couple of stumbles along the way, maybe. And then there's, your intermittent holiday. And then by the time you get to the last quarter of the year, you're like, come on, man, this is, I'm just going to throw in the towel. And this is sometimes even after we have recognized that we have had victories, that when we follow the protocol, we feel better. We don't need either over-the-counter or sometimes even prescription medications any longer, that we have a bit more energy. We don't need our afternoon nap. That maybe our mood is regulated. Maybe we've lost some weight. Maybe joint pain has resolved. But even after all these victories, sometimes you say, I want to quit. So what do? My recommendation is to just take a moment, take a breath, and think. If you can think about why you started the change in the first place. Why did we make efforts to change? Probably we had a motivation. It could be strictly weight loss, which is nothing wrong with that. It could be strictly wanting to fit into a size 10 jeans again. Nothing wrong with that. But it could be more profound. It could be, I don't want to take insulin for type 2 diabetes, which is where I was. I'd given up on losing weight. You can go to my blog, link below. It's just caseydurango.com, and see some of my photographs from my not heaviest, but heavier times, and even during the summer of the triathlons. Ugh, not a good look for me, I will have to tell you, standing there next to the pool in a bathing suit and cycling shorts. size huge. But I tried the move more, eat less, low fat, working with the nutritionist, food pyramid, not macros, METs, energy expenditure, BMI, BMR. I have the world's largest spreadsheet on this going back to December 18th, 2000, long before I started the ketogenic protocol. I didn't want to take insulin for type 2 diabetes. And I've repeated this story many times. Google how to not take insulin for type 2 diabetes. Came across the white coat video of my friend, Dr. Eric Westman. He wasn't my friend then. I was never his patient. He's from Duke University. And just Google white coat video, Dr. Eric Westman. And this was not an infomercial. He was talking to clinic patients. This is many, many, many years ago. Keep your carbs 20 grams or fewer. If it's not on page 4, don't eat it. Why page 4? Because he hands out 5-page stapled together handout to his clinic patients, and the food list is on page 4. So if you've always wondered, why is it called page 4? That's the reason. Anyway, I said, okay. And I knew from 1977 that Atkins, low carb, worked for me. But I just like many of you, I just, I lost a few pounds, threw the book away, got on with my life, and then got on with my life. And then I grew larger after the birth of our second child. And then I started all the low fat, which was counterproductive for me. And then I was, moody and depressed because I was getting bigger and bigger. And I had, small children and a husband that was working 3 jobs so that I could stay at home with the kids, et cetera, et cetera. Bigger, 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 bigger. But my motivation was I don't want to take insulin for type 2 diabetes. That very day, January 8th, 2014, the next time I put food in my mouth, I laid off the carbs. And then I started laying off the carbs and the excuses. I even have a mug. You can buy a mug that says I laid off the carbs and the excuses. So when you want to quit, try to remember why you started in the first place. I recommend to people, I never did this because I didn't know all this was going to happen. Make a little personal video diary for yourself. Just you and the phone. Password protected. Download it into a thumb drive and then hide that thumb drive away if you don't want anyone else to ever see it. But just tell yourself how you feel that day. And if you're doing well and then you stumble, and then there was, a basket of bread incident in a restaurant, the next day you feel terrible, record that as well. Record how you feel after that incident, how you bloat immediately and joint pain comes back, and then you feel like a failure. When you want to quit, take a moment to remember all of that. And then also remember how victorious you felt the first time you went a weekend without pretzels and beer or whatever it might be. How victorious you felt. If you just went through Halloween and didn't have a piece of candy, remember that feeling. We all want to throw up our hands sometimes at different things, sometimes in relationships, paying the bills. I mean, stuff is hard. Life is hard. Sometimes you will say, I'm out of here. I'm done. I can't anymore. But we can. And frankly, we must. For our own self-preservation and for our own mental health, our mental well-being. So when you want to quit, take a moment to remember. Remember the motivations from the first place. Remember how you felt after a strumble. Strumble is a Keto with Casey thing we started around Patreon. I have a private Patreon support group, link below. And I do, every weekday morning, I do pre-recorded video snippets. And sometimes it's before coffee. And I do portmanteaus, which is a smash up of 2 words. So I was trying to say struggle and stumble, and it came out strumble. So after a strumble, remember how that felt. And then just say, okay, well, I really want to give up. Maybe tomorrow I will. But today I'm just going to see it through. Or break it down into something else. Maybe in an hour I'll give up. But right now I'm going to see it through. Take a moment and remember. And then try not to quit. on whatever that thing is that you're trying not to quit that makes your life better. And that's, oh, you don't have to buy anything to be 100% successful, but I have this green journal you can get. Link, go to my blog. It's on the sidebar. It takes you to Amazon. It's Go Keto with Casey's 12-month record book. And there are quotes in there in addition to mood trackers and goal setting and adult coloring pages and everything else. There are 2 quotes in there. This one's from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. When you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot in it and hang on. It's colorful. And then here's another one that is apt, I think, for today's topic. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Thomas Edison. Now, using the word failure is a bit harsh, I feel like. Eating pretzels and beer is not being a failure. It's just making food choices that maybe don't serve you very well. But that's true. We strive and we give up when we're on the, we're right there. And then we stop. So push ourselves a little bit, break it down into increments if you need. Don't think I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Just say I'm going to do this today. And then doing it becomes a habit. And habits are powerful things. I know. Because I've had to build many habits and break a lot of them. So let's turn and see what all of you have to say today. Jackie Bennett, good morning from New York. And Doris Commissara, good morning from Michigan. Good morning, right, Steph? And Creative Film Music. I love some of these handles. I admire your persistent weekly coaching. A good friend told me this week she's facing a diabetes diagnosis with very high sugars, but I'm not sure I can talk to her about ketosis, etc. Her son is a doctor. Yeah. So, yeah, that's tough. Although the logic of it, a lot of people who are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and prescribed insulin are then told to increase their carb intake. What? You know why? Because the insulin drives down the carbohydrate. And so you take more carbohydrate. So you don't have too low glucose. Well, wait a minute. Why don't I just cut out the middleman? Don't take the insulin, lay off the carbs. By the way, if you are on insulin as a type 2 diabetic, you must do this under doctor supervision. Because if you lay off the carbs and you're on insulin, your blood sugar could drop too low. That's another clue. And hypoglycemia can be more dangerous than hyperglycemia. It can be an acute problem. Dr. Teresa Ulrich. Good morning, Casey and all from Chicagoland. Creative Films Music. Wow. Increase carbs on type 2. And then you keep increasing it. So they give you more insulin because your blood glucose has gone up because you've eaten more carbs. So you take more insulin, and then they say eat more carbs. Now, there are people who I've heard this. People telling me that their father said because the child of the father was very excited about the fact that this was helping them, the child, laying off the carbs. The father, type 2 diabetic, and had a lower portion of his leg amputated from type 2 diabetes. And the child trying to say, Dad, just if you could, he says, listen, I'll just take more insulin, but I'm not giving up dessert. Not much can be done for that. This is not unlike people who have COPD, are on oxygen, have a cannula for oxygen. Then they have to take the cannula out so they can smoke a cigarette. We humans are odd creatures. We're the only species that does things against our own best interests. I don't know why. My dog Jack. Hey, by the way, some of you said you missed Jack. Look, I set it up. So I'm in reverse here. Can you see? I can't. My camera's in reverse. I'm trying to point there. There it is. There he is. He's asleep. Sweet old thing. He's on a ketogenic diet. He's 14 and a half years old. Over.
10:15.
Judy Porterfield, good morning from Michigan, Casey and all, and then a whole bunch of emojis. Creative Films Music. I just told her, yeah, I'm watching my sugar and carbs very closely too. Yeah, that's all he could do. If someone asks for information. Now, there is actual information, and there's a very good book, but you wouldn't, I mean, you do what you want to do. I would not be giving this book to a friend that was in that situation, particularly if the friend has a medical doctor in the family, because the medical doctors, not all of them have caught on. Not all of them are open-minded. I don't think I dreamed this. I believe this is in the white coat video. One of the things that kind of really caught my attention when I first saw that white coat video of Dr. Eric Westman, and he's a classically trained internist. Move more, eat less, low fat. But then he was doing a round at the VA hospital, and he had a couple of veterans came in, a couple of buddies, and they'd lost weight, 20 pounds each or something like this. And he said, that's great. What are you doing? He said, we're just eating a bunch of steak, butter, we're just leaving off the rolls. What? Yeah, we're sending the rolls and the potatoes and stuff. Oh, but I'm worried about your cholesterol. He said, well, you're a doctor. Don't, check it out. So he did, and they were fine, and they were healthy, and they were losing weight, and this triggered. And so he saw the one vet, and then he saw the second vet. And to Dr. Westman's great credit, he was telling his clinic patients, he says, I was not so overtrained as a physician that I could not see what was going on in front of my very eyes. And then he did research. He's a researcher at heart, I believe. And then he researched the Atkins information. Good. And Ruth Haney writes, good morning from Chicago. Wanting to give up. And again, this is not just, I try to have more of a 30,000 foot view on my own life. And then I think it helps put a lot of things in perspective. But it's not just laying off the beer and pretzels or the pizza or the ice cream or the chocolate donuts or whatever it might be. That, is the center, should be the center of one's life. There, I have another little thing kind of side that's barely, it's in its infancy, beyond keto with Casey. Because at some point, okay, I lost weight, I'm healthy, I'm on no medications. I'm not as strong as a body, weightlifter, but I can hold my own. So what now? Well, I've got some adventures ahead for me. And I'm planning on documenting them. And, the flavor of what I write and the videos I make may be a little different. No pun. I just made a pun. The flavor might be different. But the point is, doing things in our lives that serve us well, trying to let go of those things that just don't serve us. I'm going to move over so you can all see Jackie again. He's just asleep. That don't serve us. And this is hard. It can be hard to let go of painful thoughts. It can be hard to let go of disappointment, heartbreak. It can be hard to let go of friendships that have passed their season for various reasons. It can be difficult to make different financial decisions based on how circumstances change. So we need to choose those things which serve us and work on letting go or extricating ourselves from those things that don't serve us, that make us feel worse, that make us think worse, that make us do worse. We need to follow our better angels and try to knock the not better angels off our shoulders. By the way, I got new glasses. What do you think? Too big? Oh, and Dr. Teresa Ulrich writes, "Hello from Chicago area, Ruth Haney." So it's interesting. There are people like Mona is in Istanbul, and then there are people from Norway and South Africa, New Zealand, and France, and Germany, and a lot in the UK, many in Canada. It's so interesting to realize that people from all over the world are attempting this, and in some parts of the world, it's actually harder to make those decisions because I think, and I can never remember, one of you will, or all of you will correct me. I think it's in the UK where on food labels, the nutrition labels, they don't list total carbs. They just list net carbs. And that can be very deceiving. In the United States, my recommendation is if a food package touts its net carbs and or its grams of protein, it's probably full of carbs. Look on the back label and look at the total carbs and look at the serving size. So it's interesting, people all over. Karen from Utah, I am so thankful for the keto lifestyle. Food truly is not the boss of me. Looking forward to the rest of your story, Casey. Thank you. And by the way, like I said, you don't have to buy anything to be 100% successful. As a matter of fact, don't buy anything, except if you want to buy a t-shirt or a cap or a mug. And I think below I linked Food is Not the Boss of Me t-shirt, which you can get. This one is what is this one? This was just Keto with Casey. It's just t-shirt. And sometimes I'll put products that I really like using. I think the Braun immersion blender, which I put off getting an immersion blender. And I also put off getting an air fryer and a soda stream. And I like all of them very much right now. Creative Films Music, a small victory for healthy choices. I'm 75 with hip replacement and an arm injury, but I still hefted my carry-on in the overhead and several times this last week, was very carefully keto traveling. Right? Congratulations. And Ruth Haney waving at Dr. Ulrich. And Karen from Utah writes, great creative films. You know, so many of us, men and women, but particularly women, it's not only been implied, we've been told directly, oh, well, you know, after a certain age, just you're going to lose your muscle mass and you're going to lose your, you know, and you get foggy and you're going to put on weight. I mean, did any of you grow up kind of having this as a truism, a truth? Well, I'm here to tell you, I started this at age 55. I had been obese and morbidly obese for 30 years. 30 years, from my mid-20s to my mid-50s. And I had tried it all. And then things changed. So I'm healthier, fitter, more regulated mood for sure at my age than I was in my 40s or even maybe my 30s, because I was unhappy with myself. I was happy with my life. I was unhappy with myself. Okay, if you have a little commercial, if you can subscribe to this channel and give a thumbs up, it actually helps my channel and costs nothing. If you are interested in checking out my Patreon, you can actually do a free trial for 7 days. And if you stick around, $5 a month, you get at least 20 pre-recorded video snips every weekday morning, topics often suggested by patrons themselves. So I appreciate that. Now I'm just trying to not keep the lights on. I'm trying to earn my keep. The lights are on. I'm trying to earn my keep. I've worked since I was 15, right? I had to get a worker's permit to work because I was not yet 16. And even those years when my husband was working and we had small babies, I would get a job when needed. I worked at Filene's I worked at Filene's. I didn't work in the basement. I worked at many restaurants. I worked in-home childcare. I worked at another restaurant. I worked in the back office of a restaurant as a bookkeeper. And this was all in the formative years. And then I went into real estate. I've always worked. So I want to feel like I'm contributing. Creative films, music. Yes, exactly. The negative stereotypes, especially about age. Important to think outside that box, right? Many of us feel like we've been put inside boxes, right? That we've been, now there are things that being in a family, or, raising children or being in a committed relationship or being a member of society, we have to do things that maybe um, would not be our choice right that moment, but they are our responsibility and our duty, and we do them. But then there are other times when we've been relegated. Again, men and women, perhaps more so women, relegated. Just, well, la-di-da. Not for me. Unfortunately, my husband, although he comes from a machisto society, he tried one time. We got married very young. We were in Boston, and he said to me he was like 20 when we got married, and it was only been in the country 6 months. And he said to me something, and he said, if I was in Colombia, I could expect dinner on the table when I walked in the door. And I said, wow, look around. We're in the north end of Boston. We're not in Columbia. And he never really said that again. He learned. He grew up. He's a very mature person. Excuse me. Deb Rundle writes, I have a terrible cold. Does anyone here know of a good cough drop? I guess, well, at some points, Deb, just maybe, it's hard to get them that don't have sugar, although somebody else may know of one. I have not worried about it. I've even had hot tea with lime and honey in it when I've had a very bad, but it's been a long time. But I've had that. I'm not, I didn't stress out too much over the bit of honey or the cough drop, but maybe someone else knows one. Okay. Wow. I'm really need my glasses. Layla 903 writes, my cure-all is gargle with warm salt water. That is a very, very effective thing. We do that as well. Another thing is ginger and garlic. Ginger is supposed to help with upper respiratory stuff. You can make a ginger tea. Creative films, music. Layla 903, yes, works. I'm a singer, and that's the go-to. Gargle with warm salt water. Salt pulls out the infection, supposedly, is my understanding of it. All right, friends, I'm going to wind down. I really appreciate you allowing me to be part of your day. Remember, for one thing, if I can do this, I am not a very regimented, disciplined person. Opposite. So if I can do this, you can do this, I promise. Just remember why you started. And remember how great you felt when you followed through. And remember how not great you felt when you didn't. And then just try to build on the feeling great moments. It's worth it. Thank you so much. Make it a meaningful day. And I will see you next week. God willing, the creek don't rise. Bye, y'all.